world's biggest consumer of ramyun noodles. Koreans love their ramyun. We look behind the secret of the Korean ramyun success in the global market. The crisis at the Kaesong Industrial Complex is downgrading the trust in inter-Korean economic relations. We talk about the economic impact of the Kaesong Industrial Complex crisis. Rental electric cars, Seoul City Car. We dig into the IT solution technology, the base for City Car. We visit Foresco, which is a processed timber manufacturer that has for the first time in the world received the highest mark in environment-friendly standards. China is North Korea's most important and largest trading partner. We will analyze the size of bilateral trade and also the history.
Hello, I'm Andrew Salmon and welcome to Bizline. We've got a packed show for you today. We've got reports covering everything from the technology behind a new electric car sharing solution to the secrets of the popularity of South Korea's favorite snack meal. So stay with us. But before we go on to that, let's take a look at the business and economic news making the headlines here in South Korea this week.
The Korean government has decided to reduce the amount of tax breaks on large companies for the first time, a move that is expected to draw in an additional 200 billion won, or roughly $180 million in tax revenue. This is a direct follow-up measure of President Park Geun-hye's economic pledge to secure additional funds for the supplementary budget. Korea's consumer prices showed a slight decrease in April from the previous month, putting its on-year growth in the 1% range for the sixth straight month. In a report released by Statistics Korea, the country's consumer prices index rose 1.2% on year last month, down 0.1 of a percentage point from March. For the first time in 13 months, housing prices in the country rose in April after the government unveiled a set of measures to lift the housing market from a prolonged slump. According to the Korea Appraisal Board, the prices across the country rose by 0.1% in April from the previous month. The prices in districts outside of Seoul rose by a greater margin of 0.2%. The National Assembly agreed to adopt a so-called alternative holiday system starting in 2015. That means starting that year, public sector workers will be allowed to take a Monday off of work if a national holiday falls on a Sunday. After days of partisan wrangling, the National Assembly's Security and Public Administration Committee finally found an alternative, deciding to revise presidential decrees.
If you're an American and you want a fast food snack meal, the choice is probably a burger. If you're a Briton, it's fish and chips. If you're a Korean, it's probably ramyun, or instant flavored noodles. Now currently ramyun is conquering the palates of diners around the world, just as other dishes such as bibimbap, kalbi and kimchi have done. But among the many varieties of ramyun available, one in particular is really enjoying great success and popularity. What are the secrets of this success and popularity? Let's take a look.
Instant noodles, better known as ramyun in Korea, celebrates 50 years of production in South Korea this year. The actual birthplace of ramyun is Japan, which was 5 years earlier, and it is similarly pronounced as ramen. But Koreans just can't live without ramyun. So what makes Korean ramyun so special and appealing? Korea's love for ramyun is exceptional. About 3.52 million packets were produced last year, with one person on average consuming more than 70 a year. The consumption rate is the highest in the world, more than double the amount consumed by the Chinese, where the history of noodles began, and even higher than Japan. It is a common meal and can be eaten at any snack cafe in Korea. It is popular among students and the youth.
학교에서 바쁘다 보니까 빨리 먹을 수 있어서 친구들이랑 자주 먹는 것 같아요.
Even the internationally recognized singer Psy is a big fan of ramyun and enjoys it all the time.
저만큼 라면을 맛나게 먹는 연예인이 한국에 존재하지 않을까. 존재하지 않는다는 생각에
Samyang Ramyun was the first ramyun to be produced in Korea, which was in September 1963. The food situation was poor at the time, and many people couldn't afford to eat 3 meals a day. The government endorsed ramyun because they thought the lightly fried flour with condiments would be nutritious at an affordable price. However, people had misconceptions about this new type of food.
라면은 처음에는 생소해가지고 일반인한테 알리기 위하여 적극적인 홍보를 했습니다. 라면 그러니까 이게 면, 실이나 옷감, 플라스틱 등으로 오일을 했었죠.
Despite the consumer's lukewarm response to a packet of chicken soup-based ramyun worth about a penny on debut, it quickly became popular in the 1970s and the 1980s, and the market began to thrive.
아무래도 뭐 60년대 그다음에 70년대 초까지는 일단은 배고픔을 달래주는 일종의 뭐 구호식량 비슷한 개념이었던 것 같습니다. 그 이후에 80년대 들어오면서부터는 다양함, 그러니까 한 가지보다는 다양한 상황에 맞게 자기 입맛에 맞게.
With the rise in demand, companies introduced varied products of ramyun, from red-colored soup-based ramyun to dry black bean paste, spicy bibimbap to even instant spaghetti. There is even just pour hot water and wait for 3 minutes cup ramyun, adding to mass consumption. Ramyun is popular because it is simple to cook and inexpensive. Koreans favor soup and spicy taste, which are fulfilled by ramyun. But that's not all.
라면에는 뭘 웬만큼 넣어도 기본적인 맛이 나기 때문에 개인별로 뭔가의 플러스 요인을 할 수 있는 그런 재미 요소 이런 것들도 라면이 그 사랑받는 또 큰 이유 중에 하나지 않을까 이렇게 생각을 합니다.
Consumers don't just cook the ramyun straight out of the packet, but they also experiment and make their own recipes, adding various ingredients to the instant noodles, which takes about 3 to 5 minutes to cook on the stovetop. So do snack cafes seen anywhere in the country.
다양하게 자기가 무엇을 넣고 먹고 싶다 하면 얼마든지 가능해요. 야채 어느 것이라도 콩나물이라도 또 짬뽕 라면이라고 해서 해물도 넣고 또 콩나물도 넣고 그렇게 끓이고요.
And if you are a spicy ramyun eater, then there is the all-time favorite Shinramyun, which has kept its bestseller place for decades since its introduction in 1986. When it was first introduced, it was the hottest ramyun, enough to numb your tongue, but people soon became addicted and even spicier products followed.
그 매운맛을 내는 그 캡사이신이라는 그 물질이 그 스트레스를 해소하는데 좀 효과가 있다라는 어떤 과학적인 증거가 있습니다. 그래서 불현 중에 아무래도 스트레스를 받으면 그 매운맛, 특히 좀 더 굉장히 강하게 자극적인 매운맛 이런 거를 통해서 뭔가 스트레스를 해소하는.
Koreans are not the only ones enjoying Korea's spicy-tasting ramyun. An instant noodle-tasting blogger, The Ramen Raider, has recently named 10 of his favorites, and 3 of them are from Korea. And all 3 of them are known for their spiciness. Korea's love for spiciness has also changed foreigners' taste.
Excellent.
Yeah, very good.
Well, I like it.
초기에는 그 외국 사람 입맛에 맞는 라면을 별도 개발하여 수출을 했었습니다. 근데 시간이 갈수록 한국 라면의 특징인 쫄깃한 면발, 그 다음에 매콤한 매운맛을 선호하는 전 세계 소비자들이 한국 라면 그대로 맛을 보고 싶어 해가지고 요즘은 패키지를 그대로 수출합니다.
Ramyun is not just a simple way to take care of a meal anymore. It is a huge market with potential to grow globally.
국가별로 하면 약 60 내지 70개국에 대한민국 4개 라면 회사에서 1년에 한 3천억 이상 수출을 하고요. 몇몇 라면 회사는 현지에 공장을 직접 운영을 하죠.
As South Korea's economy developed, so did the consumer's preference. Ramyun makers haven't missed this opportunity to pioneer into better quality markets for the product which once held the image of being a very inexpensive way to take care of a meal.
2000년대 이후로는 라면에도 건강이라는 그런 개념까지도 같이 생각을 하시는 것 같습니다. 그래서 영양 설계를 한다 그러는데요. 잘 설계를 해서 제품 개발을 하는 그런 방향으로 저희가 점점 발전해 나가고 있습니다.
Ramyun, mostly fried and dried noodles with a length of more than 40 meters when stretched out fully, has taken South Korea a long way.
앞으로는 그 우리 한류를 대표하는 식품 한류의 대표 주자로서 전 세계에 펼쳐나갈 것이라고 추측을 하고 있습니다.
And the world is sure to fall in love, if not already, with the Korean Ramyun for its chewy noodle and capsaicin-rich spiciness, and for constantly seeking to meet the consumer's needs for healthier and trustworthy food.
Amid political tensions on the peninsula, inter-Korean economic exchanges are at a standstill. Currently, massive tension is hanging over the landmark Kaesong industrial complex, which is at lockdown and facing a very uncertain future. To discuss these issues, we have with us a special advisor, the chief advisor to the complex and professor of inter-Korean relations at Jungang University. Professor Sang-Man Lee, welcome to Bizline.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. Let's begin. For our viewers who may not be familiar with Kaesong, when did this project actually open?
They opened 2004, it's maybe 9 years ago, right? And at the end of the 2004, the first product produced at the business complex.
And what administration was in charge in Seoul at that time? Can you tell us a little bit about the Sunshine Policy?
At that time, it's the Kim Dae-jung government. They started in the Sunshine Policy. The major northern policy is the expanded exchange between the South and North Korea. Especially, they are very emphasized inter-Korean economic exchange expanding. So, in that sense, Kaesong Business Complex is main and job for their operation and expanding the inter-Korean economic exchange.
Would you consider it the most important example of inter-Korean economic exchange?
Yeah, and because even before Kim Dae-jung government, we have very small size inter-Korean exchange is already realized that one, like an imported and seaweed, and sometimes we exported some product, but then the size is very small. But after we opened business complex, our inter-Korean exchange is very big size. So it's a kind of a turning point that we're expanding the inter-Korean economic exchange.
So clearly it's a landmark project in inter-Korean economic
yes.
exchange. How many South Korean firms were established in the complex?
Now in 123 Korean factories operators over there, and they hired 53,000 North Korean employees.
Okay, and again, these are, am I correct in saying, largely small and medium-sized South Korean companies? These are not the big conglomerates who are operating in
exactly.
Kaesong.
Usually the small-sized businesses major operate up there. Yeah.
What's the economic size of the complex's output?
It's estimated around $500 million valued in the product of them each year.
Each year,
yeah, right.
About $500 million a year. Okay.
Yeah, exactly, $500 million. Yeah.
And how much money does North Korea earn from the complex in workers' wages?
Yeah, it's around $80 million per year we pay for the employee salary.
Okay, so definitely a significant project.
Right.
Except for Kaesong, is there any other inter-Korean economic exchange at present?
Since in 1998, we have we opened the Diamond Mountain resort area.
Mount Gungan.
Yeah, Mount Gungan. But unfortunately, 2008, shooting the tourist, right?
A South Korean tourist was accidentally shot by a North Korean.
And closed that site. There's another one is we have a train, and we connected the train from south to north, but that also is now shut down now. Yeah.
Okay, so we're now facing the shutdown of the last real inter-Korean economic exchange.
Exactly.
Okay. Is this the end for Kaesong? The North Korean government pulled its workers out of Kaesong at the beginning of April, and now the South Koreans have also left. The whole complex is in mothballs. Is this the end?
Yeah, now it's temporarily shut down the all operation there. But that means not shut down the business complex itself, just temporarily shut down operating the factory, right?
Right. But if I was a business owner in Kaesong, I would think I've got buyers and customers, I need to supply them, I've got contracts to fulfill. How long can the business owners put up with this temporary closure before they decide Kaesong is no longer viable, we need to go and set up shop somewhere else?
I think if till the end of this month, if we can reopen the business complex, I think in the company is a lot of trouble because already and a lot of buyers already withdraw from the and they change their product produced to another country, especially to the China.
Right.
So and also they usually their company size is not very big,
Right.
so they are now a lot of shortage of operation fund too.
Yeah.
That's why I think in next 2 and 3 weeks is the
decision time.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Okay. If Kaesong is permanently closed, what would be the loss to South Korea?
Now we have some final around $60 million value of final good and raw materials remained in the Kaesong business complex. Okay, this is a direct loss. Okay, another one is that we are operation is closed. Then a lot of Korean employee is also a lot of trouble. So they are out of work, right?
Right.
That's another one. Another one is there's a lot of buyers is now changed. They are distributed to another place, right? And it also we have trouble. As finally, and we have some national credit, also some damage because and the people think Korean Peninsula is very unstable.
How much of a blow, we've talked about South Korea, now let's talk about North Korea. How much of a blow would the loss of Kaesong be to Pyongyang? Because they'll be losing a fair amount of foreign currency, no?
Yeah, basically directly they lost the chance of to get the employees' salary. Right?
Yeah.
It's around $50 million each year, and also our company paid the tax, income tax, right? They also lost that one too. Most important thing is they have lost opportunity to train their workers and managers, especially in that area we jointly operated. So and now as a lot of technology transported to North Korea, right? And also they understand the global rule,
Global
how
management
the market
practices,
economy is
yeah,
working
yeah.
there, right?
Sure.
So they lost the chances. It might be very long time and influence the economy.
Yeah. What do you think will happen to the 53,000 North Korean workers who've now lost their jobs at Kaesong? Will the North Korean government be able to compensate them?
I think they don't have any choice because I don't think they have another in the factory. They hire them, right? It's impossible.
Gotcha. Now, Kaesong has survived, I think, 10 years, almost 10 years of political crisis on the Korean peninsula, including the sinking of the Cheonan in 2010, the Yongpyong Island shelling also in 2010, and it continued to function. Why do you think North Korea has decided to pull its workers out of Kaesong this time?
The situation is different. Two things. One is now North Korea government use Kaesong business complex as a leverage to dialogue with America and South Korea, because after nuclear test, the international society, including South Korea and America, they started the economic sanction to the North Korea, right?
Yeah.
So they really want to reopen the dialogue and discuss about some economic sanction and other things, right? In that case, they want to use business complex as a leverage and to make some crisis in that area. And through that one, they open the dialogue, right? That's the main point. Second one is his father's government, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un government. The economic environment is totally different.
Okay.
And his father's government, Kim Jong-il regime, their government they take over their their power. 1993 is the worst time economically in North Korea.
Yeah, yeah.
So and after that, they have a lot of trouble in economically, and the people are starving to death and so on and so on. So their only dollar sources is from South Korea. So Kaesong business complex is very, very important project for their government in the Kim Jong-il government, right?
What has changed now?
Changed because 2009 is last Lee Myung-bak MB government.
Yeah.
They started some change the northern policy from the sunshine to the more strict
Yes.
and policy, right? So especially in May 24th announcement.
In 2009.
Yeah, right, exactly. So our government started the economic sanction to the North Korea. So and we never allowed our businessmen to visit North Korea, right?
Except for Kaesong.
Except Kaesong,
Right.
yeah. That's why, and so inter-Korean economic exchange is very strictly limited there. So that at that time, North Korea find another some place to economic exchange. There's China. So after that, the volume of economic exchange with China is almost 3 times higher, expanded compared to the inter-Korean economic exchange. So now it's around more than $5 billion exchange
Per year.
is there with China. So and Kaesong is not very important
Anymore.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Right,
why
right.
it's economic environment change there.
Is there a fear that if the Kaesong complex is indeed closed, then South Korea has lost a very, very important economic bridgehead in North Korea and is essentially abandoning the North Korean economy to Chinese investors and businessmen?
Yeah, if you think about some balanced power, especially economically, North Korea, the inter-Korean economic exchange should be balanced with North Korea and China economic exchange, right? So we are very worried about that one. Yeah, so that's why if they shut down the Kaesong, we lost everything. Yeah,
and there's
very
nothing else.
unbalanced. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one. So another
Okay.
one is the Kaesong is the kind of test bed, like some planting areas as a market economy, right? We
Yeah.
trained a lot of North Korean managers, and also we spread the market economy to the North Korea, right? It might be utilized, use that one, that knowledge, that know-how. If we unified our land, we use that one for the reconstruction of a North Korean economy, right? But we lost the
If
chances.
it goes, let's go. Understood. Now, North Korean leader has declared to his people that the people won't have to struggle anymore. He's promised a better and improved economic life for North Koreans. Under his rule over the last year, just over 1 year, have we seen significant economic improvements?
They're very strong, very strict policy to the military, like a nuclear test, missile test, like all that, right? But even in we have Korean potential is military tension, but North Korean economic policy is very changeable now this time. Especially Park Bong-ju is now become a prime minister. He used to be a key player in economic reforms in North Korea 2002. In the near future, maybe North Korea started a new and some economic reforms. It's very difficult to harmonize in the economic reforms and the military and
Military first
tension.
policy. Understood. Sure. Speaking broad brushstrokes, big picture, can you predict the future of economic cooperation?
Okay. Last 10 years,
Yeah.
we have some trend, like inter-Korean economic exchange sometimes expand. If when the military crisis broke out, that they shrink. But after that, if you solve their problems, then in re-expansion to our inter-Korean exchange, like in the weather, summer, winter, like that one, right? So still I'm very positive about the future of our inter-Korean economic exchange. So this is the third time, this nuclear crisis is the third time, right?
Third test.
Yeah. So if you review the last time, usually after 3 months, they started the nuclear test or missile test, okay? And 3 months later, they started dialogue. So, and the relationship very unstable. Then our economic inter-Korean exchange also reopened and expansion That's just last 10 years trend, okay? So I expect if in North Korea, South Korea, and America have started a dialogue, okay? So by the byproduct, there's some relation is much better. There might be, and we are reopen Kaesong business complex, or maybe we start again about the small business, small and contract at North Korea. So I don't think that even Kaesong business complexes temporarily shut down the operation. That might be the shutdown the inter-Korean economic exchange. So still, I'm very positive the future aspect of the inter-Korean economic exchange.
You say you're very, very positive, Professor, but on the one hand, the major projects, one is the Gumgang Mountain Resort, closed down in 2008,
Yes.
hasn't reopened.
Okay.
As you yourself say, there's a good chance that the Kaesong complex may close down within a month, and that could be permanent closure. What could be if there's no cooperation, you're starting again from scratch. What happens next?
So a major difference, the environment of South North Korean and inter-Korean exchange is our government. As MB government, main policy is totally different from the Park's
The
new
current government, Park
That's
and Hae
different.
government.
Yeah, at that time is dialogue is not very important, but this time our new northern policy dialogue is the first priority, right? That's why I think if the environment change, I think we have a chance to end expansion there, to open the economic exchange.
Well, Professor Lee, thank you very, very much indeed for joining us on Bizline. It's been a
thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you
Thank you.
indeed. Traffic congestion is a major issue for any large city worldwide. Here in Seoul, the Metropolitan Government is providing a car sharing service, renting out electric cars which Seoulites can pick up at a range of locations around town. Now naturally, the technologies inside these electric cars are rather different from the technologies we see in conventional vehicles. Today in our ICT segment, we're going to take a look at the technologies which are inside this new approach to traffic management.
This is Choi So-young, an office worker whose office is located in Myeongdong, Seoul. She often works outside of the office and regularly takes a taxi. But today, she decided to use the city car service. Car sharing is a car rental service with easy access, but it requires complex IT solutions to manage reservations and payment services for the 10 million potential users in Seoul.
카쉐어링 서비스를 제공하는 시티카의 핵심은 모든 차량의 상태 정보를 실시간으로 파악하고 원격에서 제어가 가능하다는 점입니다. 이러한 기술 덕분에 24시간 무인 운영 서비스가 가능하고 사용자는 언제 어디서나 자기가 필요한 만큼만 차를 빌려 쓸 수 있습니다.
As people living in Seoul are potential members of City Car, it is necessary to book the service in advance. When a member books a service, he or she can choose a car. A reservation is made with the selection of a car and the driving hours, as well as a battery range check. Choi So-young chooses a fully charged electric car, which is the first mass-produced vehicle of its kind in South Korea. To drive a city car vehicle, the member must have the registered T-money card or smartphone. A key is unnecessary because the subscriber can unlock the car by holding either the card or the smartphone over an NFC-controlled card reader. The first thing a driver notices right after getting in the car is a monitor with a welcome message. It also functions as a navigation system, guiding the driver to the final destination. After the driver turns on the ignition, a timer starts and displays the driving time for record. Unlike general taxis and traditional rental car services, a user of the city car service is charged every 30 minutes with a rate of about $2.50.
차가 필요할 때 손쉽게 차를 빌릴 수 있도록 되어진 시스템인데 이 시스템에 스마트폰이 가지고 있는 기능들이 결합이 돼서 훨씬 이용하기가 편한 것 같아요.
When an electric vehicle is fully charged, the car can travel up to 90 kilometers. If a driver needs to drive further, he or she needs to recharge the car.
배터리 충전이 필요합니다.
On the way back to the office after the meeting, a warning sign appears on the monitor. The monitor inside of the car always displays the remaining battery level and guides a driver to the nearest charging station with a GPS system embedded in the car when the car is running out of battery.
저희 시티카 서비스는 차량의 단말기를 통해서 차량의 충전 상태나 위치 정보 같은 차량의 상태 정보를 실시간으로 수집하고 있습니다.
Guided by the city car, the driver arrived at a fast charging station. The driver can recharge the car only with a charging card that's always kept inside of the car. To start charging the car, the driver should hold a charging card over a charger for user authentication.
생각보다 충전이 빠르게 돼서 좋았고요. 완충하는데 20분 정도 걸리더라고요. 그래서 5분에서 10분 정도만 충전을 해도 목적지까지 갈 수 있을 만큼 충전이 돼서 굉장히 빠르다고 생각했습니다.
Recharging is complete. IT solutions in the center help manage the electric vehicle charging infrastructure and control unoccupied rental service and operation system.
차량 반납 시간을 어긴다든지 아니면 사고가 발생한다든지 그런 경우에 뒤에 예약된 사용자를 어떻게 조치할 건지 그런 것들을 어떤 시나리오나 이런 것들을 분석하고 예측해서 대응할 건지.
제가 7시까지 지금 예약을 해놓은 상황인데요. 밖에 나와서 미팅을 하다 보니까 시간이 늦어져서 예약을 30분 정도 더 연장할 예정입니다.
From a remote place, the center can instantly respond to any accident, such as a complete discharge or a delay in return due to traffic congestion, and assist members to drive safely without any hassle. To return the car, the member has to drive back to the parking zone where he or she picked up the car. The member pays for the service with either a T-Money card or a mobile T-Money card installed in the smartphone that he or she used for booking. The last step is charging the car for the next driver.
각종 정보나 승용차의 충전 상황 등을 실시간으로 알려준다는 점이 저에게는 편리함을 넘어서 굉장히 안전한 서비스구나라고 느낄 수 있게 해주었습니다.
지금 현재는 저희가 전기차만 가지고 카시어링 서비스를 하고 있지만 앞으로는 수소차나 일반차까지 확대를 해서 사용자가 카드나 스마트폰만 있으면 언제 어디서나 자기가 필요할 때 차를 이용할 수 있는 서비스를 제공하고자 합니다.
Car sharing, the environmentally friendly transport culture that's built on the growing sharing economy trend, combined with information technology. This new transport option is expected to be well received by the people in Seoul.
With timber stocks dwindling, hardwood is becoming less available and more expensive. Consequently, we see less and less classical hardwood furniture in our homes or our offices. As a result, there's an increasing demand for processed timber. But there's a downside to processed timber. Processed timber can emit potentially harmful materials. Now currently, a South Korean company is entering the spotlight for its unique approach to processing timber. We'll meet this company in our Hidden Champion segment.
We see wooden furniture all around us at homes and at workplaces. Medium density fiberboard, or MDF, is a common material for making furniture. Eco-friendly interior design has launched a revolution in the furniture market. There is more interest in the MDF market, which is going green. One office in Incheon awaits its opening with a very unique office space. The office walls and furnitures have been made with eco-friendly material.
이 제품을 사용하게 된 이유는 친환경 소재를 사용했다는 점과 그 다음에 후가공이 따로 필요하지 않다는 점에서 이 제품을 사용하게 됐습니다. 워낙 고객들이 친환경 제품에 대해서 많이 꼼꼼하게 생각하시기 때문에 저희도 거기에 발맞춰서 준비를 하고 있습니다.
One furniture manufacturer is keen on a particular material these days. Their eco-friendly MDF furniture is gaining a lot of interest from people concerned about the environment and their health. MDF is made by binding broken down wood fibre from wood residuals under high heat. The material is used in the production of various furnitures. Tests have constantly revealed that binding material for making MDF emits a large amount of formaldehyde, which poses health threats to people.
MDF는 기본적으로 한 10%가량이 그 전체 중량의 10%가량이 접착제로 이루어져 있는데요. 그 접착제 때문에 보통 우리가 많이 생각하는 환경 호르몬이 발생하게 됩니다. 이제 그 이유는 이제 포르말린과 휘발성 유해화합물이라고 하는 VOC 때문인데요. 이것들은 우리가 아는 것처럼 천식이나 아토피나 VOC 같은 경우는 암을 유발하는 원인이 된다고 합니다.
Because of such harmful effects, more people are avoiding newly built homes and MDF furniture in their children's rooms. The trend of eco-friendly products is taking over interior design construction sites and also furniture manufacturing sites. Foresco is a company which leads the green revolution. Foresco has been developing eco-friendly MDF since 2007. Through a lot of trial and error, along with research and development, the company managed to reach the top level in international standards with its development of the world's first environmentally friendly color MDF.
이 MDF 소재가 항상 사람 옆에 있습니다. 예를 들면은 인테리어 소재라든지 가구라든지 예를 들어서 애들 책상이라든지 무수히 많은 것들이 우리 곁에 있는데 특히 더 진행되고 있는 것이 어떤 다중시설, 여러 사람들이 이용한 밀폐 공간에서 사용되는 그런 것들이 점점 늘어나고 있는 추세입니다.
The international standard for eco-friendliness depends on the amount of formaldehyde emission. Over 70% of the material made in the domestic market is marked with standards lower than E1, while anything from E0 standard is considered eco-friendly. Foresco has succeeded in creating a natural source of binding material which has received the NAF rating in international standards for not emitting formaldehyde.
저희 포레스코는 친환경 MDF에 E0, 슈퍼 E0에 이어 접착제를 천연 식물성 원료 콩으로 만들어 세계 최초로 국내 친환경 기준 최고 등급인 NAF로 천연 목재 수준의 MDF 보드 상용화에 개발을 성공했습니다.
Foresco manages to manufacture its products from raw material to processing all in one stop. The MDF does not require secondary processing for creating color, but instead the natural color of the processed timber, which meets NAF standards, is used to make eco-friendly furniture.
지금 저 뒤에 보이는 나무가 국내에서 자라고 있는 소나무입니다. 그런데 이제 너무 좀 작거나 좀 휘어 있어서 타 용도로는 좀 사용이 어려운 국내산 소나무를 저희 컬러 에코보드의 원재료로 지금 사용을 하고 있습니다. 그리고 나서 저희 컬러 에코보드 제품에 사용할 수 있게끔 기계에 투입될 수 있는 좋은 조건의 어떤 칩 상태로 저렇게 치핑을 하게 됩니다. 나무 조각 상태로 만들어서요. 그 다음 공정으로 원재료를 보낼 수 있습니다.
Based on domestic market share numbers, Foresco's revenue amounts to some $71 million, which places the company at 5th place in the industry. Foresco did not set goals to become number one in the market with its revenue, but instead the company kept its focus in gaining competitive edge through research and development in order to create a world-class technology. Foresco's technology was introduced at the International Building Material and Decoration Fair. There is growing customer consensus to welcome eco-friendly MDF into everyday life.
친환경 MDF가 나오게 되면서 원목을 대체해서 많은 가구에 쓰일 수 있겠고, 특히 현대 가구 디자인에서는 그 원목 이외에도 그 컬러와 그 뭐 트렌드 내지는 그 디자인에 있어서 많은 적용 가능성이 있기 때문에 상당히 기대되고요. 특히 이제 컬러 같은 경우에서는 특히 친환경 컬러 MDF가 나오게 되면서 아마 많은 디자이너들이 아마 사용하게 되고 넓게 그 사용할 수 있으리라고 생각합니다.
As natural wood becomes a scarcity in the future, the market trend is expected to produce replacement for the raw material. Innovation is becoming a key factor in management of technology. Foresco's technology is expected to lead the industry into the future, with the company's vision of putting safety and eco-friendliness as a priority through application of science in its wood manufacturing.
China and North Korea have maintained a strong political relationship ever since China intervened to support and indeed save North Korea at the height of the Korean War in winter 1950. Today, that relationship remains as critical to the survival and the viability of the Pyongyang regime as ever before. And it's not just about politics. Over 80% of Pyongyang's exports go to China, and Pyongyang is reliant upon China for trade, investment, fuel, and food. In this week's North Korean segment, we'll take a look at the critical, yet often underreported, trade relationship that spans the Yalu River between China and North Korea.
China is not only the closest ally, but also the biggest trading partner of North Korea. China began to emerge as the North's principal partner after the Soviet Union and its communist bloc in Eastern Europe collapsed in the 1990s. In the early 90s, the trading volume between North Korea and China reached over $0.9 billion, but due to the economic crisis in the mid-90s, it fell by 2/3. It started to pick up again in 2005, surpassing the $1 billion mark in response to a new economic treaty between the two countries. The figure almost doubled in 2008 and soared to a whopping $5.6 and almost $6 billion in the last 2 consecutive years.
2010년도에 북한이 천안함 폭침, 연평도 도발 이런 걸 함으로써 우리 정부가 오이사 조치를 취했죠. 그래서 그것 때문에 사실 북한이 남북 경협의 위축 이거에 영향을 받아서 북중 교역이 이제 늘어갈 수밖에 없는 환경이 이제 만들어졌고, 김정은 정권이 안정적으로 연착륙을 하려면 거기에 또 걸맞는 물질적 조건들이 만들어져야죠. 그래서 이런저런 요인들이 북중 교역을 늘어날 수밖에 없게 했다고 볼 수가 있습니다.
Last year, the North's trade with China stood at $5.93 billion, a record high, with nearly $2.5 billion of exports and more than $3.4 billion of imports.
수입 품목은 굉장히 다양합니다. 우리가 잘 알다시피 북한은 경제난 이후 이 공업 제품의 생산이라는 것이 거의 대부분 없다고 봐야 되죠. 다양한 소비 제품들 이런 것들이 아주 스펙타클하게 다 수입이 되고 있다고 봐야 됩니다.
Last year, of the total imports, 20% was petroleum and byproducts, while the rest was composed of machinery, vehicles, equipment, and various consumer goods. As for exports, thanks to their vast supply of mineral deposits, estimated to be worth more than $6 trillion, minerals top the list, making up 65% of the total amount. And anthracite took up 74% of the mineral exports, followed by iron ore and others.
외화를 벌 수 있는 방법이라고 하는 거가 석탄 수출 같은 광물 수출을 대대적으로 늘리는 거, 그리고 북한 노동자들을 해외에 파견해가지고 돈을 벌게, 외화를 벌게 하는 거.
In 2011, Beijing allowed tens of thousands of North Korean laborers to work in factories in northeastern China.
중국 경제가 커지는 과정에서 끌어당기고 있는 거거든요. 중국의 입장에서는 북한으로부터 광물을 사온다든지 노동력을 유입시키는 것은 중국 사람들한테 이익입니다. 이건 순전히 경제적 법칙에 의해 가지고 돌아가는 거죠.
Because North Korea does not release its trade figures, all the numbers mentioned earlier are based on the trade volumes reported to Chinese customs along the borderlines, be it by land or sea. And there is also the notorious North Korean customs that usually rips off the merchants with its authority. Before fleeing the communist country, Kim Ju-sung was involved in maritime trade in the western port city of Nampo, South Pyongan province. He sold mostly clamps and other local products, such as pine nuts and beans. With the customs tyranny, it was impossible to meet the government's set quota. So he turned to smuggling.
어느 때부터인가 그 중국 상인들이 직접 북한 대방들에게 핸드폰을 주기 시작한 거예요. 그래서 그 핸드폰을 몰래 받은 북한 측 무역 일꾼들은 그 다음번부터는 무작정 해상으로 나가요. 그래서 전화가 통화권에 들어가는 데까지 중국 해역 쪽으로 가까이 가요. 어느 해역까지 왔다면은 중국 대방의 해상에서 마중을 나오는 거예요. 그래서 결국은 세관들을 다 떼어놓고 전해끼리 하는 거죠. 이것은 밀수밀매 형태인 거죠.
Kim said people utilized this route to smuggle prohibited items and began entering China in the 1990s.
밀수꾼들이 그 배를 얻어 타요. $1,000 정도 운임을 주고 뭘 가져가냐면 대체 그러면 몸속에 들어갈 수 있는 거 뭐겠어요? 금이나 마약 같은 거. 그다음에 골동품이라고 해서 이런 옛날 도자기. 이런 걸 가지고 그의 중국에 드나드는 배를 같이 타고 가요. 유유히 그 배를 타고 사라져요.
Kim said the North Korean State Security Department has its patrol ships on high alert to clamp down on illegal sea trade.
아이러니한 게 뭐냐면은 그렇게 해서 중국의 밀수밀매로 드나드는 배들은 연유는 엄청 많아요. 중국 사람들이 연유를 많이 줘. 그리고 어떤 배는 기관을 엔진을 2개를 달아줘요. 경비정이 못 따라오게.
Given that such smuggling activities are pervasive, the actual bilateral trade volumes can extend beyond one's imagination.
무역을 통해서 외화를 벌어들이는 기관들이 많아지게 되면 자연스럽게 외화가 집중이 안 되고 나아가서는 이제 여기에 부패의 여지도 상당히 있고.
A large part of commerce between the two communist nations is composed of illicit activities disguised in connection with legal ones. And China's efforts to crack down on those activities in response to the United Nations additional sanctions seem to have been effective. The total trade amount shrank by 7.2% in the first quarter of this year compared to the same period last year. However, experts predict China's tougher measures are unlikely to influence bilateral trade any further because the communist ally is its buffer zone, and exchanges, including ones illegal in nature, will continue as long as mutual interests exist.
And that's all we have time for on Bizline this week. Thanks for joining us. I do remind you, we'd really like to hear back from you. Give us some feedback by visiting us on the Arirang TV homepage. Alternatively, check out our new Facebook page. Once again, thanks for watching. Hope to see you next week. I'm Andrew Salmon. This was Bizline. Goodbye.